What would you do if you were left at the altar, in front of hundreds of people because of your body? That's exactly what happened to Tiago, and the video went viral across the country. But what no one expected was that this humiliation would be the starting point for an unbelievable transformation. And when he came back, he wasn't just thinner, he was stronger, more confident, and had a message that touched thousands of hearts. Watch until the end and get ready to be moved. If this story touched you, subscribe now and be inspired by the next one. The Sun embraced St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York when Tyler Albright, 32, adjusted for the 10th time the navy blue tie that his mother had chosen especially for the occasion. His trembling hands betrayed the nervousness he was trying, unsuccessfully, to disguise with shy smiles for the arriving guests. "Calm down, son. Everything will be all right," whispered Mrs. Diana, adjusting the lapel of her son's suit. "Faith loves you, everyone here knows that." Tyler took a deep breath, trying to believe his mother's words. He and Faith Mitchell had been together for 3 years. They met during a business administration conference in Boston, when he was still working as a financial analyst at a bank and struggling against the extra pounds he had accumulated after years of sedentary life and professional stress. The relationship blossomed quickly. Faith, with her honey-colored eyes and brown hair that cascaded down her back, seemed not to care about his body being outside the standards. At least that's what he believed. The families got along well from the first meeting and the marriage. Proposal came naturally during a trip to Cape Cod, between cobblestone streets and the calm sea of the Massachusetts coast. "It's time, man," announced Richard, his best friend and best man, patting him on the shoulder. "Look at this packed church. Everyone came to see you making the best choice of your life." The cathedral was indeed full. Financial market executives, MBA colleagues, extended family from rural Virginia, all elegantly dressed for what promised to be the event of the year in the social circle of the Albrights and the Mitchells. Father John, a friend of Tyler's family, since childhood, positioned himself at the altar with a welcoming smile. The organ began to play the first notes, announcing the entrance of the bridesmaids. Lucy, Faith's cousin, followed by Megan and Patricia, childhood friends of the bride, walked elegantly down the central aisle. Tyler's heart raced when the cathedral doors opened completely and the wedding march filled the environment. All the guests rose in a synchronized movement, turning to the entrance. That's when he saw her. Faith was stunning in her white French lace dress, holding a bouquet of white lilies and orchids. Her father, businessman Charles Mitchell, conducted her by the arm with pride stamped on his face. Their gazes met from a distance, and for a brief moment Tyler felt that everything would be all right. But something changed when Faith reached the middle of the aisle. Her steps hesitated. The smile faltered. She stopped, causing a confused murmur among the guests. Charles looked at his daughter with concern, whispering something in her ear that Tyler couldn't decipher. Faith released her father's arm and remained motionless like a statue amid that festive scene. Her gaze transformed, becoming a mixture of embarrassment and something that Tyler had never seen in her eyes before: repulsion. "I can't do this," she said, her voice echoing through the suddenly silent cathedral. "I can't marry someone like this." Time seemed to freeze. Tyler felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. His breath caught in his throat as he watched Faith spin on her heels and walk hurriedly out of the church, letting her bouquet fall to the marble floor. "Faith!" Charles's voice echoed, but she had already disappeared through the door. The silence that followed was more deafening than any sound. Hundreds of gazes turned to Tyler, some with pity, others with morbid curiosity, few with genuine compassion. He remained paralyzed, his brain unable to process what had just happened. It was his mother who first moved, climbing the steps of the altar to embrace her son. Richard approached quickly, trying to create a barrier between Tyler and the curious looks, but it was too late. Cell phones were already raised, capturing every second of that humiliation. Outside the church, Faith quickly got into the limousine that should have taken them to the reception venue. Caroline, her best friend and maid of honor, managed to get in before the driver, confused by the situation, pulled away. "What happened? Have you gone crazy?" Caroline asked, holding Faith's arm firmly. "I couldn't do it, Carol," Faith sobbed. ruining her perfect makeup. When I started walking and saw him there so fat at the altar with that tight suit, everyone looking at us, I thought about the photos, the honeymoon, everything. I simply couldn't go through with it. What none of those present at the cathedral knew was that, the night before during the bachelorette party, Rachel, Faith's envious cousin, had shown cruel comments on social media about the couple. "How can someone like you marry someone like him?" they said. Photos of them together with malicious captions circulated among the party guests. The seed of doubt, planted months before by subtle comments from acquaintances, flourished that night watered by champagne and insecurities. Meanwhile in the church, Tyler finally managed to move. Led by his father and the best man, he walked with his head down along the same aisle that he should have walked alongside his now ex-fiancée. The crowd made way, some trying to offer words of comfort, others simply averting their eyes. Outside, reporters from social columns who were waiting to register the exit of the newlyweds captured the image of Tyler leaving the church alone, red eyes and defeated posture. That same night, the video of the fat man abandoned at the altar was already going viral on social media. A private moment of humiliation transformed into public entertainment for thousands of people. 2 weeks had passed since the incident at St. Patrick's Cathedral, but for Tyler, it could have been 2 centuries. Locked in his apartment in Brooklyn, he lived in a limbo of shame and pain. The curtains remained closed day and night, as if they could protect him from the judging gazes of the outside world. The notifications on his cell phone wouldn't stop. Messages of support from close friends mixed with cruel comments from strangers who somehow managed to get his number. The hashtag #RejectedGroom had reached the top of national trending topics, closely followed by the following fat guy left at altar. "Son, you need to eat something," insisted Mrs. Diana, who had practically moved into her son's apartment. She placed a bowl of potato soup on the coffee table, next to a pile of unsigned contracts from the bank where Tyler worked until last week when he sent an email asking for resignation, unable to imagine facing the corporate corridors. After the public humiliation, "I'm not hungry, Mom," he replied mechanically, his eyes fixed on the television screen that displayed a variety show. The volume was at minimum, but he could read the subtitles. They were talking about him, again. The cell phone vibrated again. It was Richard. "Man, it's not time to be alone. Let's go out, have a beer at Joe's. Just the 2 of us, like the old days." Tyler almost smiled, remembering the old days, when he and Richard, still at Columbia University's economics school, spent hours at the traditional West Side bar, discussing the future, plans, dreams. At that time, his weight never seemed to be a problem. He was just Tyler, the smart guy, with the best ideas for academic projects. "I'm not ready, Richard." "Maybe next week," he replied, knowing he would give the same answer the following week. When Mrs. Diana finally went home after insistences that everything was fine, Tyler allowed himself a moment of complete despair. Sitting on the living room floor, leaning against the sofa, he cried as he hadn't cried since childhood. It wasn't just Faith's rejection that hurt. It was the exposure, the public humiliation, the videos, the comments, the psychological analyses, made by specialists on TV shows who never knew him. It was at that moment, at rock bottom, that something unexpected happened. His cell phone vibrated with a different notification. An email from Paul Henry, author of bestsellers on personal development and overcoming. "Tyler, we don't know each other, but your story has reached me. I understand your pain because I've been in a similar place. If you're willing to talk, I'd like to share how I transformed my greatest humiliation into my greatest victory. I'm in New York this week. Regards, PH." Tyler stared at the screen for long minutes. Paul Henry was famous, author of several books, a constant presence on television programs. Why would he be interested in his story? Was it another attempt to exploit him for audience gain? Against all his instincts, he replied, "I'm available, but I prefer a discreet place." The next morning, in a small and cozy coffee shop in Greenwich Village, Tyler met with Paul. Surprisingly, the author came alone, without assistants, without cameras, just 2 men having coffee. "You know, Tyler, 10 years ago I weighed almost 350 pounds. Paul began, taking a sip of simple coffee. My fiancée didn't abandon me at the altar, but she traded me for my best friend. At the time, I was a math teacher at a public school in rural Georgia. Tyler raised his eyes, genuinely surprised. The man in front of him was thin, athletic, confident, completely different from the description he had just made. "What changed?" he asked, the first sincere question he had asked in weeks. "I changed. Not just my body, but my mind. I transformed. Pain into fuel." The conversation lasted for hours. Paul didn't offer magic formulas or empty motivational speeches. He shared his journey, the obstacles, the relapses, the small victories that kept him going when everything seemed impossible. At the end of the meeting, he handed Tyler a card. "This is Dr. Lisa Thompson, sports nutritionist, and this is Edward Lewis, a personal trainer who works with sports psychology. Both helped me transform my life. I told them about you and they are willing to help if you want." That night, for the first time in weeks, Tyler ordered food for delivery, not pizza or a hamburger, as usual, but a salad with grilled chicken. A small step, but significant. In the following days, he gathered courage for a consultation with Dr. Lisa. In her welcoming office in Soho, she didn't mention the wedding incident or the viral videos. She treated him like any other patient, with respect and professionalism. "We're not talking about a diet, Tyler, but about nutritional re-education. It's a lifestyle change, not a temporary remedy," she explained, while developing a personalized, nutritional plan. The meeting with Edward was more challenging. At the high-end gym in Chelsea, Tyler felt like a fish out of water among sculpted bodies and designer clothes. But the personal trainer, a man in his 40s with an easy smile and compassionate look, made him feel welcomed from the first moment. "We'll start slowly. Your body needs to understand that we're on its side, not against it," said Edward, scheduling light exercises for the first weeks. Each small achievement was celebrated, being able to walk 10 minutes on the treadmill without stopping, switching soda for natural juice, sleeping without needing medication, looking at himself in the mirror without immediately averting his eyes. It was Richard who suggested the idea of the YouTube channel during one of Tyler's rare outings. "Man, you need to transform this story. Show your journey. Inspire other people. Have any idea how many Americans identify with you? Not for the reasons you imagine, but because everyone has felt rejected, inadequate, judged at some point." The idea seemed absurd initially. Expose himself even more voluntarily? But gradually it began to make sense. Transform the narrative, take the reins of his own story. Thus was born New Beginning, a modest channel where Tyler shared weekly small videos about his transformation routine. At first, he only talked about exercises and nutrition, avoiding mentioning the wedding incident. The first videos had few views, mainly close friends and family members. But everything changed when, 3 months after the beginning of the channel, he decided to speak openly about being left at the altar, without self-pity, without victimhood, just sharing how that moment had been a watershed. "Pain transformed me. I'm not changing to prove something to the person who rejected me, but to regain the respect that I myself lost. I'm learning to love." The man in the mirror, with his imperfections and potentials. The video went viral, this time for positive reasons. Supportive comments flooded the discussion section. People shared their own stories of rejection and overcoming. Media outlets that had ridiculed him before now requested exclusive interviews to tell the other side of the story. 6 months after the fateful day at St. Patrick's Cathedral, Tyler was another person. Not just physically, he had lost almost 55 pounds with dedication and professional guidance, but mainly emotionally. His channel already had more than 100,000 subscribers. Companies of food supplements and sports equipment began to seek him for partnerships. While editing his newest video about the importance of psychological support in the journey of personal transformation, he received a notification on his cell phone. It was a direct message on Instagram. Faith Mitchell wanted to talk. Tyler stared at the notification for long minutes, his finger hesitating over the cell phone screen. Faith's message was simple. "Can we talk, please?" 6 months ago, these words would have accelerated his heart with hope. Now they provoked a complex mixture of emotions that he could barely identify. He decided not to respond immediately. Instead, he put the phone away and continued his routine, a light run in Central Park, followed by a balanced breakfast prepared according to Dr. Lisa's guidelines. He would think about it later. That Saturday morning was reserved for a special recording. His new beginning channel was completing 6 months, coincidentally the same period, since the day at the church. Paul Henry, the author who had extended a hand when Tyler most needed it, would be his special guest. "You are different," observed Paul, upon arriving at the small improvised studio that Tyler had set up in his apartment, now much more organized and bright, with the curtains always open. "It's not just the physical, there's something in your eyes." Tyler smiled, adjusting the main camera. "I think it's peace. Not complete yet, but I'm getting there." The recording flowed naturally. They discussed resilience, self-forgiveness, and the importance of finding purpose in pain. At one point, Paul asked a question that wasn't in the script. "If you could go back in time, would you prevent what happened in the church?" Tyler was silent for a few seconds. 6 months ago, the answer would have been an obvious yes. Now, "No," he finally replied. "That moment completely broke me. But from the pieces emerged versions of myself that I would never have known otherwise." After the recording, while having lunch with a salad with grilled salmon prepared by Tyler, another newly acquired skill, Paul casually mentioned that he was launching a new book and wanted Tyler as a special guest at the launch event at a major bookstore in the Manhattan Mall. "Me? Why?" "Because your story perfectly exemplifies the message of the book, transforming rejection into rebirth. Besides," added Paul with a smile, "I'm sure your presence will attract many of your followers. It's good business for both of us." Tyler laughed. It was still strange to think of himself as someone with followers, people who cared about his opinion and story. After Paul left, he finally picked up his phone to check Faith's message. There were 2 more. "Saw your videos, you look amazing. I'm really sorry for everything, truly." He felt a lump in his throat. It was easy to imagine Faith's voice pronouncing those words, the same tone she used when she apologized for small misunderstandings during the relationship. As if abandoning him at the altar, humiliating him in front of hundreds of people, was comparable to forgetting to buy milk at the supermarket. He decided to respond neutrally. "Thanks for the message. Hope you're doing well." The response came almost instantly. "Can we meet? I have a lot to say." That night, Tyler discussed the situation with Camilla, his psychologist, during the weekly session via video call. "How do you feel about the idea of meeting her?" asked Camilla, always direct. Confused. "A part of me wants to hear what she has to say. Another part fears that a meeting might destabilize all the progress I've made." "There's no right or wrong answer here, Tyler. The question is, which decision honors the man you're becoming?" The question echoed in his mind for days. Meanwhile, his followers on social media noticed a slight change in his posts. Less enthusiastic, more reflective. Speculations began to emerge in the comments, some mentioning rumors that Faith was trying to reconnect. It was a message from Caroline, Faith's ex-maid of honor and friend, that finally helped Tyler decide. They had never been close, but she had been following his channel since the beginning. "Tyler, I know Faith is trying to talk to you. As her friend, I think it's fair to warn you. She's been in a relationship with Greg for 4 months. He was at her bachelorette party. He's Rachel's cousin. The two already knew each other before everything. I don't want to create discord. I just think you deserve to know before any meeting." The revelation was like a punch to the stomach, but not for the reasons Tyler would have imagined months ago. It wasn't jealousy or a sense of betrayal. It was disappointment at the confirmation of the character of someone he had placed on a pedestal for so long. He decided he would meet Faith, not to seek reconciliation or revenge, but to close that chapter for good. He suggested coffee at the same mall where Paul's book launch would happen, a few hours before the event. On the arranged day, he deliberately arrived 10 minutes late, a small act of empowerment that Camilla had suggested. Faith was already there, sitting at a discreet table at the back of the coffee shop, nervously stirring her cup. She seemed smaller than in his memories, more fragile. Her hair was different, shorter, and there was an air of anxiety in her gestures that Tyler didn't recognize from the confident woman he had known years before. "Thank you for coming," she said when he sat down, without offering her hand or any physical contact. "You look different." "We all do, I think," he replied, surprising himself with the calm in his own voice. Faith took a deep breath before starting her clearly rehearsed speech. She talked about insecurities, social pressure, how she had been influenced by malicious comments from people close to her. She explained that on the night before the wedding, she had consumed too much alcohol and heard opinions that planted doubts. "I panicked, Tyler. It wasn't about you, it was about me, about my own weaknesses." He listened to her attentively, without interrupting. When she finally finished, he asked the only thing that really mattered. "Why now, Faith? After 6 months, why seek contact precisely when my channel is growing and my public image has changed?" She seemed genuinely offended by the insinuation. "It's nothing like that. I always wanted to apologize, but I didn't have the courage. I thought you would hate me." "I did hate you," admitted Tyler honestly. "For weeks I nurtured that feeling, but I realized it was a waste of energy that I could use to rebuild myself." The conversation continued for almost an hour. Faith admitted to being in a new relationship, confirming Caroline's information, but insisted that it had only started after months of separation, a transparent lie that Tyler chose not to confront. When they finally said goodbye, she surprised him with a question. "Could we at some point try again as friends to start with?" Tyler looked into her eyes, those same honey-colored eyes that had once been his safe harbor. Now he saw only a stranger. "No, Faith, I sincerely wish you the best, but our paths have taken different directions and it's better that way." Leaving the coffee shop, he felt an enormous weight leave his shoulders. He no longer needed Faith's validation or approval. For the first time in years, he was completely free. Hours later, at Paul Henry's book launch, Tyler was received with enthusiasm by dozens of followers who made a point of attending the event. Among photos, autographs, and inspiring conversations, he barely noticed when Faith entered the bookstore discreetly, observing from afar the confident and smiling man who was now admired by so many. That same night after the event, Tyler received a call that would completely change the course of his story. Matthew Turner, a producer from one of the country's largest television channels, had watched his participation in the launch and wanted to talk about an ambitious project, a special program about stories of overcoming, with Tyler not just as a guest, but as a protagonist and co-host. "We want to make a pilot episode about your story, but with a twist, confronting people from the past who were important in your journey, both positively and negatively," explained Matthew. "It would be a chance to inspire millions of Americans who identify with your trajectory." Tyler hesitated. The idea of publicly reliving painful moments from the past seemed counterproductive. On the other hand, the national platform would allow amplifying the message of overcoming that he so believed in. "I need to think," he responded honestly. "Of course," said Matthew, "but just so you know, we've already contacted some people who were part of your story, including your ex-fiancée." Tyler's heart accelerated. "And she agreed to participate, said it would be an opportunity to publicly redeem herself." Tyler hung up the phone with a strange feeling. The universe seemed determined to put him face to face with his past, as if the true closure of that chapter needed to happen not only in private, but before the eyes of all America. The studios of Central TV in the Midtown District of New York were much larger than Tyler had imagined. Wide corridors, dozens of hurried technicians, screens displaying different programs. Everything seemed to function at an accelerated rhythm that contrasted with the calm he was trying to maintain. "Nervous?" asked Amanda Vance, the famous presenter who would conduct the special program Rebirths, whose premiere would be precisely with Tyler's story. "A little," he admitted, while a makeup artist gave the final touches to his face. "I never thought I would be in a place like this." Amanda smiled, adjusting the lapel microphone on his navy blue blazer, ironically the same color as the tie he had worn on the day of the frustrated wedding. "You know what impresses me about your story?" she asked, sitting beside him in the preparation room. "It's not the physical transformation, although it's remarkable. It's how you managed to maintain dignity throughout the process, without public attacks, without cheap revenge." Tyler nodded, grateful for the recognition. In the previous months, various media outlets had offered large sums for exclusive interviews where he would trash Faith. He had refused them all. "I think I discovered that holding a grudge is like drinking poison expecting the other person to get sick," he replied, repeating a phrase he had learned from Camilla during their therapy sessions. The format of the program was innovative. In the first part, Tyler would share his journey, from the incident at the church to the present. In the second, he would face a panel of people who were part of that story, some who helped him, others who hurt him. Matthew Turner, the producer who had contacted Tyler weeks before, approached with a tablet in his hands, showing the list of confirmations for the panel. Paul Henry confirmed, as did Edward Lewis, your personal trainer. Your mother, Mrs. Diana, will arrive in an hour. Richard won't be able to come in person, but he recorded a touching testimonial. Matthew hesitated before continuing. And Faith has just arrived. She's in the green room with the preparation team. Tyler felt a chill in his stomach, but nodded firmly. He was prepared. In the last weeks, he had worked intensively with Camilla to process his emotions about this public confrontation. "There's another piece of news," continued Matthew, with an enigmatic smile. "A special guest who wasn't planned has asked to participate. You'll like the surprise." Before Tyler could question, the production assistants announced that there were only 15 minutes left until the start of the recording. Amanda was called for a final review of the script, leaving him momentarily alone. His cell phone vibrated with a message from Camilla. "Breathe deeply. Remember, you are no longer that man in the church. You are greater than..." That moment, the psychologist's words brought comfort. Indeed, his life had completely changed in the last 9 months. His YouTube channel had surpassed the mark of 500,000 subscribers. Companies of supplements and sports clothing were disputing sponsorship contracts. Motivational lectures in companies and schools filled his agenda. Pain had transformed into purpose, and purpose into career. The lights of the main studio dimmed when Tyler took his place on the modern and minimalist set. Amanda began the program with an exciting introduction about second chances and personal rebirths. Images of the fateful day at St. Patrick's Cathedral were displayed on big screens, followed by a montage of Tyler's transformation through the videos of his channel. When the spotlights turned to him, anxiety gave way to serenity. This was his story, and no one could tell it better. "I never imagined that the worst day of my life would, in fact, be the beginning of its best chapter," he began, his firm voice echoing through the silent studio. The audience, composed of about 100 carefully selected people, listened attentively. For 40 minutes, Tyler shared his journey without filters, the days hidden in the apartment, the shame, the pain, but also the process of rediscovery, the small victories, the construction of a new identity. Losing weight wasn't the main objective, he explained. It was a consequence of something much deeper, learning to love myself regardless of external validation. Amanda conducted the interview with sensitivity, avoiding sensationalism. When the first part of the program ended, she announced a brief interval before the panel with the special guests. "How are you feeling?" asked Matthew backstage, offering a bottle of water. "Much better than I expected," replied Tyler honestly. "It's like I'm closing a cycle." The return to the studio after the interval brought new challenges. On the stage, besides Amanda and Tyler, there were now chairs for 6 guests. One by one they were presented. Paul Henry, the author who extended the first hand, Edward Lewis, the personal trainer who helped transform his body, Mrs. Diana, visibly emotional, and the surprise guest, Dr. Lisa Thompson, the nutritionist who had accompanied him on this journey. Finally, the moment everyone was waiting for, the entrance of Faith Mitchell. Elegantly dressed in a white ensemble, She walked hesitantly, as if stepping on a minefield. She took the seat furthest from Tyler, avoiding direct visual contact. Amanda didn't waste time with pleasantries. Faith, the whole of America saw the moment when you abandoned Tyler at the altar, declaring that you couldn't marry someone like this. 9 months later, what would you say to him? A tense silence took over the studio. The cameras alternated between Tyler's serene face and Faith's embarrassed expression. "First, I want to publicly ask for forgiveness," she began, her voice slightly trembling. "What I did was unforgivable. I let external pressure, malicious comments, and my own insecurities make me take the worst decision of my life." She continued, detailing how the repercussion of the case affected her life as well. She lost friends, faced judgments at work, needed to move temporarily to her parents' house in upstate New York. Ironically, I also went through a process of self-discovery. I realized how superficial and influenceable I was, she admitted, finally looking directly at Tyler. "Seeing your transformation, not just physical, but mainly your strength of character, made me question who I really am." The audience seemed divided. Some showed empathy for Faith, others maintained skeptical expressions. Amanda, perceiving the tension, addressed Tyler. "And you, Tyler, what do you feel hearing these words?" All eyes turned to him. This was the moment that millions of Americans were waiting for. The final confrontation, the opportunity for retribution. "I believe in your sincerity, Faith," he responded calmly, "and I thank you for being here today. But the truth is that forgiveness doesn't depend on this public moment. It's a process that I've been building daily, with myself mainly." Before Amanda could proceed, Paul Henry asked to speak. "If you'll allow me, I'd like to share something that Tyler doesn't know." Turning to the protagonist of the program, he continued, "I received hundreds of messages from people who, inspired by your story, started their own transformation journeys, not just physical but emotional. You created a movement, Tyler." Edward and Dr. Lisa confirmed, sharing stories of new clients who sought them after watching Tyler's videos. Mrs. Diana, who until then had remained silent, took the floor with the authority that only mothers possess. "My son has always been extraordinary, even when no one else saw it, including himself." The emotion in the studio was palpable. Amanda announced that they would show the video sent by Richard, the best friend who couldn't attend in person. On the big screen appeared the image not of Richard, but of Bethany Gallagher, a young nutritionist from Chicago whom Tyler had met during a health congress 2 months before. They had exchanged professional contacts and occasionally talked about partnerships between their YouTube channels. "Hi, Tyler," Bethany began in the video, her smile lighting up the screen. "I know you were expecting to see Richard, but he gave me this space because we both agreed that something needed to be said. We've known each other for a short time, but your story touched me deeply from the beginning." Tyler looked perplexed at the big screen, completely surprised by that unexpected appearance. "What impressed me most about you wasn't your physical transformation or your strength to overcome public humiliation. It was your ability to transform pain into purpose, without bitterness, without revenge. Our coffee after the Congress in Chicago should have lasted only an hour, but we talked for almost 5. She paused, visibly nervous. "I think everyone deserves to know that there are people who would value you exactly as you are, at any stage of your life." The camera captured Faith's astonished expression, contrasting with the genuine smile forming on Tyler's lips. The audience applauded spontaneously. When the video ended, Amanda regained control of the program. "Well, that was unexpected. It seems we have new developments in this story. Tyler, anything to comment?" He took a deep breath before responding. "Bethany has been a great friend and professional partner. Her message takes me by surprise, but..." He smiled, a light blush coloring his face. "It's good to know that there are people who see beyond appearances." Amanda's attention turned to Faith, whose expression mixed surprise and a hint of jealousy that she tried to disguise. "Faith, how do you feel seeing that Tyler may be moving forward romantically as well?" The direct question made everyone hold their breath. For a brief moment, Faith seemed destabilized. Faith adjusted herself in the chair, visibly uncomfortable with Amanda's question. The cameras captured every nuance of her expression, amplifying her discomfort for millions of viewers. "I am happy." "For him," she finally answered, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Tyler deserves someone who truly values him." The audience reacted with moderate applause, some spectators exchanging skeptical looks. Amanda, sensing the growing tension, decided to subtly change the course of the conversation. "Tyler, what would you say to people who are going through situations of rejection and humiliation similar to those you experienced?" He pondered for a few moments before answering, his serene expression contrasting with the emotion-charged environment. "I would say that the pain is real and should not be minimized. Allow yourself to feel it, but don't allow it to define who you are. Time doesn't automatically heal all wounds. It's what we do with that time that determines our healing." Paul Henry nodded emphatically, complimenting, "And remember that no one can determine your value. That's a decision exclusively yours." The rest of the program flowed with touching testimonials from the guests and selected questions from the audience. Mrs. Diana shared the anguish of seeing her son suffer publicly and the joy of witnessing his rebirth. Edward and Dr. Lisa talked about the importance of professional monitoring in processes of personal transformation. When Amanda announced the end of the recordings, Tyler felt a mixture of relief and fulfillment. He had faced his demons in front of the cameras and emerged strengthened. Backstage, he was received with warm hugs from the production team. "You were incredible," praised Matthew, the producer. "The first reactions on social media are already exploding. Tyler's rebirth is trending." As the guests were leaving the studio, Faith approached discreetly, asking for a moment alone. In a more secluded corner of the busy corridor, she seemed smaller and more fragile than during the program. "I wasn't completely honest in there," she admitted, staring at her own feet. "I came with a different objective." Tyler remained silent, waiting for her to continue. "When I saw your videos, your transformation, something in me believed that we could try again, that you would still have feelings for me." She finally raised her eyes, meeting Tyler's tranquil gaze. "But seeing you today, especially after that video from Bethany, I realized that I lost something I will never have back." "Faith," he began softly, "there's no villain in this story. Just two people who followed different paths, and that's okay. Do you really know her, Bethany?" she asked with a genuine curiosity that surprised them both. "We're getting to know each other," he answered honestly. "She saw something in me that goes beyond physical appearance, whether the old or the current one." Faith nodded, absorbing the information. "She seems special." "She is," agreed Tyler. After a brief pause, he added, "I hope you find your own journey of self-discovery, Faith. Really." There was no bitterness in his words, only sincerity. Faith smiled slightly, for the first time without embarrassment or artificiality. "Thank you for not hating me. I don't think I could be so magnanimous if the roles were reversed." With a brief nod, she walked away, leaving Tyler with the feeling that a cycle had really closed. As he organized his things to leave the studio, Tyler received a message on his cell phone. It was Bethany. "I saw that the program ended. How do you feel? Oh, and sorry for the surprise. Matthew convinced me it would be a good moment to say those things." He smiled at the screen, typing quickly. "It was perfect. Can we talk more? I'm free for dinner tonight." The answer came almost instantly. "Of course, meet you at Bryant Park at 8 p.m. There's a new cafe there I want to show you." Tyler left the central TV studio feeling light, as if an enormous weight had been removed from his shoulders. The program would be aired the following week, but the repercussions were already spreading through social media, with leaked excerpts of the recordings generating thousands of comments. While waiting for his car in the parking lot, Paul Henry approached him with an excited expression. "I just received a call from New Horizons Publishing. They're interested in publishing your story in a book. They want me to be your co-author. What do you think?" The proposal caught Tyler by surprise. "A book? About me?" "Not just about you, but about the process of personal transformation through adversity. Your story would be the guiding thread, but we would address universal principles that anyone could apply." The idea was tempting. A book would further expand the reach of his message, potentially helping thousands of people facing their own challenges. "Let's talk more about this," he replied, feeling simultaneously honored and a bit overwhelmed by the speed at which opportunities were emerging in his life. Upon arriving home, he took a long shower, trying to process everything that had happened on that intense day. Before preparing for the meeting with Bethany, he decided to record a quick video for his YouTube channel. With the camera positioned in his now organized and light-filled room, he began simply, "Hello to everyone following New Beginning. Today was a day of closing cycles and starting new journeys. I recorded the Rebirths program that will air next week, and it was a transformative experience. I came face to face with my past, including faith." He paused, organizing his thoughts before continuing. "Many of you constantly ask me if I still feel anger, hurt, or desire for revenge. The honest answer is no. I discovered that these feelings only tied me to a moment that no longer defines me. True freedom comes when we understand that our story doesn't end at the painful chapters." He also talked about the new opportunities emerging in his life, the possible book, invitations for international talks, partnerships with brands he admired. He mentioned Bethany briefly without going into details, just acknowledging that new special people had entered his journey. "To conclude, I want to say something important. If you're going through your own moment of humiliation, rejection, or pain, know that this moment is not your final destination. It's just a detour on the road that, with the right choices, can lead to much more extraordinary destinations than you ever imagined." He ended the video, did a quick edit, and published it before leaving for his meeting. In less than an hour, it had already accumulated thousands of views and emotional comments. Bryant Park in New York was particularly beautiful on that spring night. Decorative lanterns illuminated the main paths, and the new cafe, strategically positioned near the central fountain, offered a cozy and romantic atmosphere. Bethany was already waiting for him at an outdoor table, her smile lighting up when she spotted him. She wore a simple dress, emerald green, which perfectly matched her eyes. "Sorry about the surprise video," was the first thing she said when he approached. "Matthew convinced me it would be a good idea." "It was perfect," replied Tyler, sitting across from her, "although it caught me completely off guard." "That was the intention," she laughed, her eyes shining with a mixture of mischief and tenderness. "I saw Faith's face when the video ended. Priceless." They laughed together, the initial tension quickly dissipating. The conversation flowed naturally, as it had happened since their first meeting in Chicago. They talked about both of their new professional projects, about places they would like to visit, movies they admired. "You know what impresses me most about you?" asked Bethany, as they savored a shared dessert. "It's how you managed to transform a terrible moment into something so meaningful, not just for yourself, but for thousands of people." Tyler reflected on the observation before responding. "I believe we all have that capacity. The difference lies in the choices we make when facing adversity." "Well, not everyone chooses as well as you," she replied, lightly touching his hand on the table. After dinner, they walked slowly along the illuminated paths of Bryant Park, telling childhood stories and sharing dreams for the future. When they reached the exit, both reluctant to end the night, Bethany took the initiative. "Before you ask, yes, I very much want to see you again. And no, it's not because you got famous or because you appeared on TV." Tyler smiled, feeling a genuine happiness he hadn't experienced in a long time. "And what would it be for then?" "Because you're the kind of person I've always wanted to meet. Someone who doesn't let themselves be defined by circumstances, but who transforms them with grace and dignity." The kiss that followed was delicate, loaded with promises and possibilities. It wasn't a happy ending. It was the beginning of something new and authentic. 3 months later, the book New Beginning: Transforming Pain into Purpose, written by Tyler in partnership with Paul Henry, became a national bestseller. The Rebirths program was renewed for a complete season, with Tyler as co-host alongside Amanda Vance. His YouTube channel surpassed 1 million subscribers, and his motivational lectures filled auditoriums throughout the United States. In one of these lectures, At the Lincoln Center in New York, he concluded his presentation with a reflection that summarized his journey. Many people ask me if I'm thankful for what happened that day in the church. The answer is complex. I'm not thankful for the humiliation itself, but I'm deeply grateful for what it allowed me to discover about my own capacity for resilience and transformation. The rejection wasn't the end of my story. It was just the first chapter of a much richer and more meaningful narrative. Backstage, Bethany awaited him with a proud smile. Their relationship blossomed day by day, built on foundations of mutual respect, genuine admiration, and shared values. That same night, as they walked hand in hand along the Hudson River promenade, Tyler reflected on how life could be surprising in its twists and turns. A moment of public humiliation that seemed like the end of everything had transformed into the catalyst for a life he never imagined possible. Looking at Bethany, at the infinite ocean before them, and at the path they had walked together, Tyler understood that some stories don't end with reconciliation or revenge. They end with growth, self-love, and the discovery that sometimes we lose something good to find something extraordinary. The true new beginning wasn't in recovering what was lost, but in discovering treasures we never knew existed within and around us. As the stars shone over the city that never sleeps, Tyler and Bethany planned the next chapters of a story that, unlike the previous one, would be written with 4 hands with love, respect, and true acceptance. Dear listeners, we hope that Tyler's journey has touched your hearts and inspired new perspectives on overcoming and personal transformation. To continue this emotional journey, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories that explore the surprising paths life can take after moments of apparent defeat. Find this special playlist by clicking on the link to the left. If this narrative resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave your like on this video. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of life and the power of human resilience. Share in the comments your own stories of new beginnings and overcoming. Your experience might be exactly the inspiration someone needs today. We're eager to read your accounts and connect hearts through these narratives that remind us of the extraordinary power of transformation that exists in each of us. Until the next story.